Hello, good morning, Sanbonani Avsheni Ndima Cheloni Abudi, and welcome to the I Am an Entrepreneur Digital Summit in association with FNB. My name is Ulisani Ravere, and I am the head of projects at I Am an Entrepreneur. The team and I have been hard at work to bring you today's summit, and we are super excited for all the knowledge and insights that are going to be shared around our theme of managing cash flow. Before I hand you over to your host for today, Andile, I'm just here to let you know about the platforms that we're using and how you can interact with us. If you are joining us via Crowdcast, have a look to your right-hand side. That is where you will find the chat box. It is available right throughout the summit, and that's where, you can hit us up with some emojis, let us know your comments, your thoughts, a wave, perhaps say something that you're really agreeing with that the speaker is saying. You can type it right there. In fact, how about we take it for a spin right now? Type in the chat box your name, where you're joining us from, and don't just be like Gauteng, Sunugwazi, are you in Soweto? Are you in Vanderbijl Park? If you're in Limpopo, Nivendanga Guy, we want to know. So let us know your name, where you're from, joining us from for today's summit, as well as perhaps what kind of business you're in. You got it? Is it working? Awesome. Now, staying on Crowdcast, look at the bottom of your screen. You will see polls, and you will also see ask a question. Throughout the summit, if you have a question that you would like to ask or pose to one of our speakers, because we, of course, will be bringing them on for a live Q&A after each of their talks, that is where you pop the question. And the really cool thing about Ask a Question is that you are also able to upvote questions. What that means is that there's a question that you really are like, yes, I want to know about that. You can simply vote on it and it will move to the top of the pile, because then we are able to see that a lot more than just one person want to know the answer to the particular question. So please feel free to send your questions our way. This is what we're here to do, to learn, to question, and to hopefully get answers and get better at managing our cash flow. And again, still on Crowdcast, right next to Ask a Question, you can also see polls throughout the summit. Andile will be throwing a few poll questions your way. Literally takes a few seconds. So please do partake in the poll so we can get your insights, so we can see where you're at and how you're feeling. And this is how we can always do better and, of course, improve on everything that we're doing here at I'm an Entrepreneur. Lastly, for those of us that are joining us via our website, a warm welcome to you. Our WhatsApp line is live and open to you for you to send through your comments, your questions as well. The number that you need to keep close to you is 078 350 0768. That number again, 078 350 0768. That is for everybody joining us and streaming via our I'm an Entrepreneur.co.za website. All right, that is all the house rules out the way. I hope you have got your thinking caps on, that you've got your mind open, and that you are ready to learn. Enjoy the summit. Welcome to the I Am an Entrepreneur Digital Summit in association with FNB and our partners.
So does your bank help
get my startup off the ground? FNB does.
Oh, okay.
With the first Business Zero account.
But you've got a job.
Office hours pay for my after hours.
Ah, you mean side hustle?
No, my business. And that's why I have a business account that has zero monthly account fee. All my swipes are free. Plus, I get data from FNB too.
Wow.
Wow is getting paid anyway.
Work that hustle.
I told you, it's not a hustle. It's a business. And that's why I'm with a business bank.
Okay, I hear you. Does your bank help you start your business like that?
Mine does.
Good morning, everybody from all over the country and indeed the world. My name is Andile Khumalo. I am your host for the rest of the morning. Welcome to the I'm an Entrepreneur Digital Summit. This time, of course, we are focusing on managing cash flows. Tough topic right now, right? I mean, the t-shirt says it. Cash is king. And without it, we are all essentially dead. But hopefully we're going to stay alive from all the tips that we're going to be getting from today's sessions. So good to hear from everybody on the chat. I see people are coming from all over the country. Lots happening in Johannesburg, but also from Epai, Western Cape, Durban as well. Good to have you guys. Please keep chatting. Please keep posting where you're joining us from this morning. I also know there's a few people from other parts of the world as well, part of this morning. Now, let me kick off by first saying congratulations, you made it this far. You are safe, you are well. If you're on this particular show, it means you are healthy. And that's a very important time in these a very important thing, rather, in these times, because this entire issue of COVID-19 is primarily a humanitarian issue. and one that talks to one's health. So if you're staying healthy, you're doing a good job. But we're not, of course, out of the woods. We got to keep staying safe. So please continue doing that. Now, let me talk to you about what's happening the rest of the day. But before I do that, let me thank all our partners, of course, FNB. Thank you so much for your continued support as our main partner at I'm an Entrepreneur Digital Summit. And then we've also got Reynolds, who drives us around the country. When we used to drive around the country, but little birdie tells me we might be able to drive around the country soon. Thank you so much to the good folks at Reynolds for your continued support. Shell, ShopRite, Gauteng Tourism, Coca-Cola Beverages, SIFA, that's a small enterprise finance agency, Limpopo Tourism, lots of guys from the Limpopo province joining us today, a lot of tourism entrepreneurs that I can't imagine what a difficult time you must be going through, of course, with all the lockdowns. Thanks to the good folks also in Barlow World. Thanks to the good folks at Shivas, and of course, the good folks at Google, who obviously helped us the last time in helping our businesses get more and more proficient when it comes to being digital. Now, Hudisani has already given you all the house rules of what you need to do. You know how to ask the questions. You know how to raise your issues. I am here to make sure I host the day and manage all the great speakers that are coming your way. And speaking of great speakers, we have got 3 very, very, very important people, at least in our lives, and at least on this issue of managing cash flows. Pavlo Fitidis, you must know him if you listen to radio, if you are connected in the space of entrepreneurship. He is the man who has been running his business for 25 years now, business that's global, London, US, and here in South Africa, supporting entrepreneurs, helping them grow. He'll be speaking to us about the issue of cash flow. He's coming live from his home this morning. So in a few moments' time, I'll be bringing him on board. Later on, we'll hear from Andi Swapata. She is from FNB. She's the regional head for Gauteng Southwest. And she'll be also talking to us about the issue of managing cash flows insofar as it relates to your bank and how to manage your affairs when it comes to your bank. And later on, Lynette Magasa. There's a lady who started out as a receptionist at Denal. Yes, a receptionist. And now runs a business of over 200 people. And she works with some of the biggest telco companies. And her business essentially sets up the infrastructure that you and I rely on to even be able to have this call. So in some shape or form, Lynette is involved in making today happen. And she'll be joining us later, telling us through her journey as an entrepreneur. It is Women's Month. We're focusing on the women entrepreneurs that are out there and also taking us through some of the challenges that she's gone through and how she's gotten over them, particularly the challenge that brings us together today, which is all about cash flow. Quick reminder for everybody that's joining us on the streams, 078-350-0768. That's 078-350-0768. That is the number for you to WhatsApp us any questions or comments, and those will be fed to me, and I'll be able to put those questions to the guests that we have. Quickly on the format of the day, each speaker will be having about 20-25 minutes to present. Then we'll have a Q&A. Some of you guys will be coming on stage to ask your questions, which is awesome. And then after that, we'll move on to the next speaker. That's all we'll do for the 3 sets all the way until 11:30. Therefore, without any further ado, let me introduce our first guest speaker for the day. He's a man who's going to be giving us some practical tools because he deals with this all the time. The business that he runs, which is Oric, supports entrepreneurs and small business owners who've been able to scale their businesses, but also eventually sell them. He is an author, he's a speaker, he's an investor, he's an entrepreneur. In fact, later on, I will be giving away his book. He's now written a new book. He had a book earlier on that he did late last year. It was called Sweat, Scale, Sell. It was all about how you can build your business, how you can scale your business, and how you can eventually sell it. Well, he's got a new book now. It is called Reset, Rebuild, Reignite. And that is all about dealing with the virus. How do you make sure you do not miss the opportunity of this global pandemic? In it, there is opportunity, believe it or not. And we entrepreneurs are all about opportunity. So I'll be giving away copies of that book for you to win. Simple. Participate. Chat group. Ask questions. Send those WhatsApps. We'll be doing a lucky draw from the most active participants of today. And then later on, we'll have our survey. Before we wrap up, we'll also give away another book at that time. So make sure you are active on those chats. You're sending me those questions so that I can send those questions over to the speakers of this morning. Sit back, relax, get your coffee, get your water. It's too early to get anything stronger than that. and make sure you enjoy the rest of the day. Straight after this break, Pavlo Fitidis.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Andila, thank you so much for inviting me. Your energy is infectious, absolutely infectious. We are going to get going because, as your t-shirt said, cash is king, but only when it's flowing. And that's what today is all about. So I'm going to share a story with you, a real life person, a South African, probably a person very similar to you, me, and most people that you know. It's a story of someone who sweated. He's about 50 years old today. He's in the business of cloth, rags, and wipes. He's been 16 years strong in the business. And right now in South Africa, he's doing 52 million Rand a year in revenues. He sweated. The first 10 years were rough. He had 10,000 Rand to start up his business. It was 10,000 Rand he had saved when he was employed in an organization. He bought from wholesalers. He sold to small retailers, buying cloths, selling cloths, and he turned his money fast and furious. It never slept, and it built very good habits. He employed an administrator when he began to scale. And all scale means is that once you've sweated and you know what business you're in, you can now begin to grow. He got terms from the wholesalers he was buying the products from. He sold for cash to the retailers. He saved up. He went to China. He went to India. He built a customer database. He employed a few salespeople. And now, going forward to the next 4 years, he's got a good mix of clients. He went into cleaning companies after serving the retailers. He's now going into the automotive sector. Renault, if you're watching, this is a guy to buy your dashboard cloths from. He's got contracts, and his target is 100 million Rands worth of turnover in rags, cloths, wipes, and lappies in the next 4 years, because then he looks to sell. So let's go through his journey and let's understand what he can teach us about cash flow. In the beginning, it was rough. He bought from wholesalers and he bought cash on delivery. So he got a small discount. Immediately, it meant that he had some advantage compared to the big traditional businesses out there. After buying on discount 10, 15, 20 times, and people had come to see that he had built trust and relationship through behavior, that he was consistent, that he was in the market and he was active, and he was churning and doing the business 24/7. He eventually got terms from some of his wholesalers. Now, this is an important part of cash flow, because if you buy for cash and sell for cash, you're turning in the dollar. But if you can buy for 30-day terms and only pay 30 days later, you can turn the money 2-3 times in the interim before you have to pay the money that you've already spent when you first bought your stock. Remember, when you're managing cash flow, You want to pay later, but you want to sell immediately. It's the working capital cycle. And he developed some smart insights on that. Eventually, he then was buying double the volumes for 30 days payment with a discount for buying double the volume. And an important part of cash flow with your suppliers, you want to be able to pay later than when you have the stock, and you want to be able to pay at a lower price. It comes by increasing your volumes. He built trust based on behavior. He wasn't lucky. He wasn't privileged. He never had connections. But because he behaved on a consistent basis with all his suppliers, and he invested in relationships with them, they began to trust him. They began to see what he was about, and they began to see a good future source of turnover through this relationship with them. They helped him extend terms. With his customers, he was selling COD weekly. He wanted to turn the rand every single week. He would call on customers and make sure they constantly had stock, because what a retailer wants is to always be sure that they've got stock on their shelves, but not stock in their stores. They're also worried about turning the rand. He eventually got to a place where he started to sell COD monthly by getting retailers to take more, and he offered them a discount. But the way he did it was so clever. If he sold 12 items or 12 bundles of product, he would not give a discount on the selling price. He would say, buy 12 and I'll give you one bundle free. And that means that the discount was limited only to his cost price, not his selling price. He was very clever in giving the retailer a big discount at a low cost to himself. And that started to create a lot of loyalty. His costs, where did he operate out of? Because cash flow management is also about preventing the bleed of money out of your business. You want to keep it churning between your product and your customers. He worked out of his home, and he worked out of his Toyota Camry, a big, big boot with many, many miles of traveling to visit store after store after store. He sweated like this for 10 years before he went on to scale. And when he scaled, he then became a distributor partner to manufacturers. He saved up enough to go to China, to go to India. He found some manufacturers over there. He formed good relationships with them. And he said, I tell you what, instead of me buying from you, let me sell on your behalf in South Africa. And when I have got the orders, we go 50-50 on the margin. Again, no money was expended in this process because he simply never had enough. He went to the local wholesalers and he started to secure consignment stocks. He said to them, I'm going to parts of the country where you never go to. You're not represented there. Let me take consignment. Let me sell to customers. And as they pay me, I'll pay you for the stock. And why did they do it with him? Because he had earned their trust. For 10 years, he had been working with these same wholesalers locally. He had started off by paying COD. He then started off by negotiating a discount. He then doubled and trebled and quadrupled his orders. And through that, they made good money and he got good terms. His customers, what he went and did is he spread his wings. And instead of establishing offices in KZN and Free State, because he was mainly operating out of Gauteng, Limpopo, Northwest, he went and he found individuals that had strong selling skills, and he gave them the opportunity to represent his products in KZN and Free State, but it was on a COD basis. His argument was, I can't pay you a salary. I can't afford to pay you a salary. Because salaries in your team, employees or people that don't perform is money that sleeps. It's not turning, it's not churning, it's not working. He got those individuals on board. They invested money by buying stock up front with him, selling the stock to their independent retailers. And through that, they constantly reordered, paying COD every time he delivered. and he grew his cash flow momentum simply by finding these agents and not committing to the costs. He then secured his first chain store, and that's when things got tough, because chain stores pay 30, 60, 90 days. And what you want to have in a good cash flow environment, late payments to your suppliers, immediate payments from your customers. In order to focus on managing chain stores, he then started to employ his first team members. He had sales staff to manage all the independent stores and agents. Why could he do that? Because to the independents, he had built a system of selling. They would buy bundles of 12, get one bundle free if they pay COD. It kept the money coming in, and it prevented a big debtors book from growing. Because if you build a debtors book, you're going to manage the debtors book. It's very easy for the debtors book to fall asleep. It's very easy that when you think you've done the deal, to forget to collect the money. He wanted to keep customers paying immediately and suppliers paying late. He got an administrator in to manage stock and invoicing. And why? Because there's another kind of cash flow that sits out there, and it's called time. Your job as the business owner, as the leader in your business, if you're a one-man show, if you're a five-man show, if you're a 500-man show, your job is to chase growth. It's not to do the administration. The administration is very important. If you don't invoice, you can't collect. If you don't invoice in time, you can't collect in time. It kills cash flow. If you spend your time doing that, then you're not spending your time looking for what generates growth, and that's new customers. He moved out of his home. His wife kicked him out of his home. He went into a bonded warehouse with his freight forwarders who were responsible for bringing the stock from China and India. And what he then did is, because he didn't want his money to sleep when you pay rent and you're not using the premises, the money sleeping, he said, I want to give you a percentage of my sales up to a certain level. And that meant that when there were no sales, there was no bleed of money through his fixed costs. And smart thinking is, you always variabilize your costs. We are very close to the sell phase. It's the next 4-year journey that we're working with him on. Over here, he buys now almost exclusively from suppliers in India and China. And because he has been working with them consistently for the last 12, 13 years, he formed relationships. And those relationships have led to him getting terms from his suppliers. Whereas before, he would have to pay before shipment took place. He would wait 3 weeks for shipment to arrive. He would wait 2 more weeks until shipment was in his stores, and then he would sell to his customers and clients. Now, he gets 45-day terms from his Chinese and Indian suppliers. He earned the right to have his suppliers provide the cash flow to fund his business. His customers have become tough. He's gone into a whole host of new categories. The retail independents, the same deal sits. 12K minimum investment in product and stock. COD, you get 1K of stock discount. The 1K of stock discount, remember, is not 1,000 Rand of cash discount. It's 1,000 Rand's value of selling price stock discount. His real cost in that is half the price. The retailer's benefit is 1,000 Rand in their pockets. With the chains, he works on 30-day terms. It used to be 60 days, but then he made a promise. And he made a promise saying that if you are ever out of stock, because I can't provide you, I will give you a 10% rebate on your last order. A 10% discount is a big discount. The stock that he holds to make sure he constantly supplies his retailers is costing him about 2.5% a month. So understanding the money magic around holding stock and not discounting or discounting is absolutely crucial when you're managing your cash flow. Because cash flow is all about making the money work, but it's also the extent of profit in the money itself. He's gone into cleaning companies now in order to grow his revenues. And again, over there, he supplies cash on delivery, 5K minimum per order. They need to collect. There's no cash bleed as he's gone into the cleaning company business. Costs, he's got his sales staff working for the independent retailers and cleaning companies. Very, very low basic, very high commission. That means they're on the phone, constantly pushing, because every time they get those deals done, remember, the money's up front before the stock is delivered. So the money's up front before the stock is delivered. His suppliers are giving him long terms, and the only thing he has to manage now are the big chains. So let's talk about what we learn from this individual. The first thing, customers cash fast, suppliers cash slow. Suppliers cash slow does not mean that you don't pay your suppliers. You need to negotiate the terms to pay slow. And when you negotiate the terms to pay slow, your suppliers will turn around and say to you, okay, Pavlo, I'll give you 30 days, I'll give you 40 days, but I can't give you a discount. If you want to pay slow and you want the discount, then you're committing to big volumes. Your argument in reply is, okay, give me 30-day terms, give me the discount if I buy twice as much. You can only buy twice as much if you've built the selling end of your business first, because that's where all business begins. Discount, but don't. When you offer discounts, if I'm selling you this product and I say I'll give you a 10% discount, don't do it that way. That's not good for cash flow. It hurts your margin. Say buy two and I'll give you one free. Because the real cost to you of this is half the selling price. There's a smart way to discount, and you must discount only on volume, pushing product in order to keep the cash flow going. Cash flow before profit. I want to tell you a story about what happened with this entrepreneur during COVID. His biggest competitor owned and dominated the Pick and Pay account nationally. When COVID came, they never had stock. Pick and Pay said to their supplier, give us stock, we need stock. So the supplier came to him and said, can we buy stock from you because we don't have stock to offer Pick and Pay? Now he could make a decision over here. Was this an opportunity to go and secure Pick and Pay as a client? Or was it an opportunity to provide the stock to his competitor so that they could keep their Pick and Pay relationship? Money-wise, in COVID, in an uncertain environment, you cannot predict the future. In uncertainty, cash in your hand is king. The deal we did was we said to the competitor, you can buy product, but it's COD. Pay us and we will supply you. Thereafter, you can supply Pick and Pay. And what that did is it put money in his hand. And what did it do to his competitor? It took money out of their business from the supply. And when they supplied Pick and Pay, they were still stuck with the 60-day terms. It's like sucking the oxygen out of your competitor. 4 months down the line, who do you think owns the Pick and Pay account? Never let money sleep. In his instance, because he started with so little, and this is the benefit with starting with almost nothing. When money came in and it went into the bank account, did he leave it in the current account? No. He had a money market account, and he constantly moved money that was not being used either to buy from suppliers, pay staff, or other costs. He put it into accounts where he was constantly earning interest. Because when you're sleeping and your money is in an account that's generating that interest, the money never sleeps. And that's what you want when you manage cash flow. The last part of my story, a dealer. Guess what car he's driving? The exact same Toyota Camry with an extra big boot to carry stock and samples 14 years down the line. His money turns in the business. It doesn't turn on his wrist, in his car, or the suit that he never wears?
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, my brother. And look, I love all the points. I'm not sure about the Camry. We need to discuss the Toyota Camry. We need to discuss the 14-year-old Camry. But thank you so much, man. I can see lots of the questions are flowing, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I'm going to go with the first question that we received, which I thought was quite interesting in the context of your presentation. Didintle was saying that she runs a services business. And her question is, to what extent can these 5 points also apply in the services industry? And I guess that's only because a lot of the examples you were making were very trading related and very kind of, trading a product. But how would they apply if one could overlay on services?
So it's a great question. And here's the thing about a service business. A service business does not begin and end. The value in a service business does not begin with starting to provide the service, then finishing to provide the service. If you think about how you provide a service, it normally is a number of activities that follow on, and as you progress the service while you're delivering the service, you're adding more value to your customer or client. So I'll give you a great example. Here's a service. The service is in the construction sector. So think like someone in the construction sector. If you ask me to come and build a workshop in your house, or a garage, or a wall for the house, the first thing that individual in the service sector asks for is a deposit. In the same way, when you provide services, if you quote your service and you're going to say, my service is 10,000 Rand, nowadays everybody wants a discount. And if you say, pay 50% up front and I'll give you a discount of 5%, what it's doing is it's bringing the money back into the business far quicker. But here's the big challenge, and dealer, then your bookkeeping has to be perfect. Because if you have 3, 4, 5 clients and you confuse where the money's coming in and for which project of service delivery, then you confuse your entire business. And I've seen really good operators lose their businesses and go bankrupt because of it.
All right, brilliant. Next one coming from Sarah Mutswane Sewotola from Honeydew, Johannesburg. Sarah is asking, what happens when you don't have enough cash to service customers that can only pay you after months? Now, this is related to your first point, cash customer fast, supplier cash flow, which means I'm a service business. I get a job from Oric, but I'm broke. Right now, I cannot service you because I know I have to do the work for a month, invoice you at the end of the month, then I gotta wait another month for you to pay me. Any tricks of the trade then?
Lots of tricks of the trade. Sarah, you cannot be everything to every person. A deal like that is not business. It's suicide. It will kill you. It's the wrong customer. You need to find a different customer. And here's the thing, for a lot of, for a lot of Black-owned businesses, with enterprise and supply development in full play, a lot of people go to the big corporates. And they go to the big corporates because these big corporates have to play the game of enterprise and supply development. But just because the corporate's big, and just because the corporate's under pressure to do business with 51% or more Black-owned businesses or 30% or more Black female-owned businesses, it doesn't mean it's a good deal. And it doesn't mean it's the right deal. If you look at where this business owner started, he started working with small businesses where he could have proper relationships. He started working with businesses where the sales were small in value. In case something went wrong, he lost only a little bit of his income and time, not the whole shooting match. You need to start small in order to grow big. You can't be small and simply get big because the deal itself seems too good to be true.
Got you. All right. So I have a question from Matthews Sebunejo, and he's stressed about his fixed income. His fixed costs. And he's wondering, how do I determine for myself when the fixed costs are just too much? How do I do that?
Matthews, you know what, my brother? Fixed costs are always too much. I think, when you're starting a business, especially in the early days, and the early days for some people can be 10 years. It certainly was for this example that I shared with you. Your fixed costs must always be taken away, and your cost must always be tied to your turnover, your sales, your revenue. It reduces your profit, but it takes away all the risk. Because here's the thing, and it's a problem globally, this. We have 12 months of the year. And for some reason, people want holidays. I don't know what's wrong with everybody. But if we could work 365 days of the year, it means we're selling 365 days to match 365 days of costs. But mostly what happens, we have a holiday in December, we have a holiday in April, we have public holidays, there's some sort of holiday around August. When you really look at it, we're sitting in a situation where your costs are running 365 days and your sales are only happening 9-10 months of the year. And the smart thing to do is let some of the profit go and say to everyone who charges you fixed costs, I can do some share with you on my turnover, a percentage of my turnover or a percentage of my gross profit. Try and stay away from fixed costs, especially in very uncertain times. Okay, so I've lost Andile. Will the video be shared with us after, at a later stage? I'm sure it will. There's a question that's come through there. A 14-year-old Camry, that's powerful. It absolutely is. There might not be the sexiest cars in the world, Tulile, but hey, listen, a car doesn't make you the money. What makes you the money is buying and selling the stock. And that's the mindset of this individual. He started with nothing. When I met him, he was doing 52 million. In the next 4 years, he will get to 100 million because his money is not sleeping. It's working in the business itself.
Pablo, there's another question, a follow-up from Sarah. How do we manage clients that promise to pay us but take forever? We're trying to nurture relationships, but some clients take advantage.
Yeah, Sarah, sometimes the only thing to do is to step away. And if I think about the very early stages of the businesses that I built, lots of promises were made to me. But very, very few people followed through on those promises. And if you look at what he did, what our entrepreneur over here did, he went to his suppliers and he went to his customers, and whatever came out of his mouth, he turned into action. His words were followed through with action consistently. In the cases where he was let down by suppliers or customers, he would continue to work with them when he had to, but he would spend most of his time looking for people, suppliers and customers that would be able to follow through on what they promised and what they said. The construction industry is very interesting. I've got a client in the United Kingdom, 19 years in the game, and they do about 120, 130 million rands worth of business. And he turned around and he said to me, after 19 years as an engineer in the construction industry, I no longer respond to every tender that comes to my table. I first do a big investigation into who the provider of the tender is. I look at the people involved. I employ an agency to tell me if these are credible, reliable people. And only then do I submit the energy and effort into my tender. Because I have learned, and he's quite right, that when I win a tender and I'm not paid on time, in the construction industry, not being paid on time can kill you tomorrow. So people will behave badly. And when they do behave badly, you invest your time looking for people who will behave well. Because I promise you, there are lots of them out there. Well, there's a nice question here as well. I'm currently looking at employing salespeople. Would you suggest that I pay a fixed salary or look at paying commission only? Paying people can turn to be a fixed expense. And I loved your point regarding employing people. You know, my answer to that question is this. Who of you has got the confidence to employ people by simply looking at a CV? Guys, I've been in business for a long time. I still can't get it right. I don't believe in my ability to read a CV, have an interview, and be absolutely sure that the money I tie into an employee will give me the results and performance. So nowadays, and we have the opportunity globally to do this because unemployment rates have lifted everywhere. Work on a try before you buy basis. Before you employ someone, give that person an opportunity to prove themselves first. If they're serious about employment and serious about coming on board in your business, let them show you that they can do what they need to do before you make a commitment to permanent salary. In the work that they do for you before they commit to permanent salary, pay them super, super well, but only on delivery of the work. And that way, they try before they buy, we try before we buy, and I think that's going to be a new way of employing people.
Pablo, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. Like, I don't know about you, but I learned a whole lot. I saw Maya and Trulet's also commenting a lot. AK, great to have you back.
I don't know what happened. I just suddenly disappeared.
I was that time.
All right. Thanks for having me back, guys. Thank you, Pablo. That was brilliant. You know, my favorite part, I must tell you, is actually the Toyota Camry. I mean, I joke about it, but it is really difficult times. And because cash is so tight, we have to be sensible about where we're spending the money. I mean, you probably can't preach this enough. But lastly, your kind of parting shot, in terms of the biggest mistakes you've seen entrepreneurs make, especially in times when cash is tight, what is your parting shot and last advice to us all?
Oh, it sounds terrible. It sounds terrible, Andile, because it's so boring. It's so boring. In the service industry, the failure to invoice accurately and on time, it delays you collecting the money by a full 30-day cycle. It's that simple. Get that right, and you will be way ahead of where you were before.
Great stuff. Let's leave it there. Pablo Fitidis, silent clap from everybody. Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you because you've been a great friend for the past few years, and particularly in these difficult times for all of us as entrepreneurs. I really do appreciate it. Well, guys, coming up next is our poll, and I'm going to make sure that I get it right this time. And it's asking you a few questions for you to answer. So make sure that your fingers are ready. The poll says, what is the current cash flow situation in your business? If the guys could put up the poll, what is the current cash flow situation in your business right now? Option 1 will say sunny skies, but I haven't saved for rainy days. Or option 2, tough times are lasting. Or option 3, Gubi Andile, which means times are really tough, Andile. What option will it be for you? So you just click on the polls that you will see there at the bottom. If you haven't picked it up, it's just next to the Ask a Question tab, and you just pick the correct one for you. What is the current cash flow situation in your business? And as you go through that, let me remind you of the 5 points that my good man Pablo shared with us. Customers fast, supplier cash flow. Discount, but don't, which meant don't just give 10% discount for one product, rather use the discount for volume. Thirdly, cash flow before profit. He used a great example of that retail or supplier business, which was competing with another supplier business where he was able to find a way to get cash on his side and, in his own words, suck the oxygen out of his competitors' cash flow. So it's all about cash flow nowadays, guys. Hey, not so much profit, but cash. Number 4, never let money sleep. Never let money sleep. And number 5, that Toyota Camry. I think that one's going to stay with a lot of us, right? Stay with the Camry. Don't change the Camry. So there you go. That is what's coming up. Let's see what's the poll saying. What is the current cash flow situation in your business? Whoa. 36% of you, sunny skies. 32% of you, tough times. 34% of you, ooh, B. It looks like it's an even split. All of us feeling this very differently. Thank you so much for that input. Keep commenting, keep participating. We've got that wonderful book from Pavlo, and trust me, after hearing him, you probably now are convinced you want to read that book. So make sure you keep participating so that you stand a chance to win that book. Moving on ahead, technical problems or not, we have got Andi Swabata. She is from FNB, and after this short break, she will be taking us through what are the cash flow considerations you ought to be having from her perspective as somebody who has to bank you. And if there's ever a time you needed a good relationship with your bank, it is now. On the other side of this, Andi Swabata from FNB.
Hey, does your bank give you a guide on how to run your business?
Yep, it's on Fundaba, which puts all I can learn about business right here.
Fun what?
Fundaba. It's proper help on how to run my business. It's free on my FNB app, so I can learn on the go.
Oh, like little tips?
I wouldn't call learning how to get my pricing right to turn profits in 1 year little.
What's the catch?
No catch. They just want my business to do well.
That's really something. Does your bank put a business coach in your hand?
Mine does.
Good day, everybody, and thank you so much for that warm welcome. By way of introduction, my name is Andi Swa, and I am a very proud member of Team FNB. I'm a regional head within the business bank, and I thought it would be good to tell you a little bit about myself before I even get into the topic at hand. So I was born and bred in the Eastern Cape in a small town called King Williamstown. Some of you may not know it. Don't worry, I forgive you. It's not very prominent and well known. Although there's a lot of legends that came out of King Williamstown. I then spent some time at UCT doing a business science degree. Thereafter, I was in consulting for a short while, but otherwise for the last 15 years, I've been in banking. Most importantly, I'd like to mention for today, I'm married to an entrepreneur. So whilst I work in a bank, I very much appreciate the hustle and the grind and the hard work that goes into growing a business and keeping it alive. Now let's think about the topic that we're going to be unpacking today and the key theme, which is how does a business manage its cash flows to ensure that it not only survives, but that it also thrives. So then in thinking about this topic, I thought that we could break it up into 3 parts. Number 1, I think it's important, as always, to do a recap as to the fundamentals of cash flow management. Number 2, I think it's important for us to reflect on why it's so important to get it right. And then lastly, because we find ourselves in such a unique position right now with COVID, it's ultra important to share strategies and tips about what actions one can take right now. So if we then flip to the first part, which is the fundamentals of cash flow management. Thinking about it, I think you first need to have an understanding of how much cash do you have right now. And when you think about that, it's important to consider how much cash do you have in hand. And by that, I mean, how much cash do you have in your wallet, in your bank account, and for some people under your mattress. Also, I sincerely hope that none of you are doing that. But really, that's cash on hand in summary. You then also must consider the cash equivalents. Now, what is a cash equivalent? For instance, it could be an investment instrument. You've put money away in terms of a call deposit account, or you've put some money away in the form of shares or buying certain assets. And when we think about all those instruments and where you have parked your cash, how you arrive at whether or not that is cash equivalent or not is, would you be able to sell that instrument quickly and easily in order for that instrument to be very quickly switched into actual hard cash? Lastly, when we think about cash balance and how much cash you have right now, You also need to consider how much headroom you have amongst your existing lines of credit or funding lines. So for example, if you have money that you are able to access, for instance, in an overdraft, or even money that has been promised to you and committed and is available by your co-shareholders or other investors, then that can certainly be considered as part of your cash balance. Because if, for instance, that line of funding has a limit of 500,000, but you've only at this point used 100,000, that 400,000 can arguably count towards your current cash balance. We then move into what then do you add or adjust in your business to then add to that cash balance to give you a holistic view. The first thing is the cash that you generate from operations. Now, that's the money that you earn by selling your goods or services or offering to your customers, for which you receive cash in. That's the major inflow, but for which you've probably had to incur certain expenses in order to be able to generate that cash. For example, you have had to pay some people in terms of salaries, you've had to pay some suppliers, you've had to perhaps pay some rent on a building or a bond, or if you have a commercial property finance loan. And so collectively, those are all considered expenses that you have had to pay cash for in order to be able to generate operating income. And so collectively, that cash in and out from operating activities is called cash flow from operations. Another form of cash flow you then need to pay very special attention to is the cash flow from investing activities. Now, this is the cash that you spend buying properties or machinery or equipment that you may need in order to effectively run your business. So whether you're buying or you're selling, those also represent a form of cash coming in or out of your business. Lastly, it's important to reflect on what is your cash position as it relates to your financing activities. Now, financing activities simply means money that you have raised in terms of either debt or equity to help fund your business. So money coming in would be a new loan or a new shareholder's injection of cash or equity. Money going out would be if you are repaying the capital portion of a debt instrument, or you are repaying shares or dividends to shareholders. Reflecting now on why is it so important to get this right? I think, as we've already said, cash flow management by its very nature is simply you just getting a crisp understanding of what money is coming in and going out of your business. Now, I've struggled to think of any business owner that wouldn't want to be on top of that, particularly because it's quite important to get this right, not only so that you can have a very good sense of what your current cash flow position is, but because it also allows you to forecast. Now, that's very important because you want to be able to look ahead and see what money is going to be coming in, what are the big outflows, and where is that going to leave me in terms of actual cash balance at the end of the day. Most importantly, though, I think it's important to reflect on the fact that 82% of small businesses, per a Business Insider research report that was done in 2017-2018, said that a key reason that led to their business failure was cash flow shortfalls. So I think it's pretty important then why we know we need to get this right. Number one then, if we then think about these reasons, and we've already spoken a bit about this, important for one to have a cash buffer. We've seen in COVID how important having spare cashes in your business can be, because this is what allows you to ride out the storm and get to the other side. It also allows you to be able to restock and get ready again after a prolonged period of business disruption, which again, we've seen over the last 4 to 6 months due to COVID. Another reason why it's important to get the cash flow management right, I think, is because it allows you to keep some powder dry. I think there's nothing worse being an entrepreneur, somebody who is spotting opportunity, pretty much on a daily or hourly basis. but just not being able to prosecute on those opportunities simply because you don't have the cash to do so. Another reason why is because, especially at this time, there are some businesses who may have been your competitors previously that now find themselves in a position where they're willing to sell their business. And if you don't have the spare cash to be able to make that acquisition, to build up and bolt onto your current business, then that would be really a missed opportunity. Another reason why it's so important to get this right, in my opinion, is because it reduces the chances that you might have to dip into your personal finances to fund your business cash shortfall. We all know that, especially as you seek to start, run, and grow your business, the interaction between personal finances and business finances tends to be pretty tight. And so if the business finances are dropping, there is a tendency to go and plug that gap with personal cash. And so if your business isn't managing cash flow appropriately for the reasons we've described, you may also find yourself in a position where you're having to dip into your personal resources, personal cash, personal wealth to help prop up the business at a time when it has shortfalls. Another reason why I think it's so important to get this right is because imagine having a bath. No matter how much water you pour into that bath, if the plug is open at the bottom, as you can imagine, pretty difficult to fill up the bath. So no matter how much revenue you are generating and bringing in at the top, if there's a lot of leakage at the bottom, that actually takes away from your ability to fill up your cup or fill up your bucket or your bath and make profits that can actually help your business to be sustainable. So cost control is very, very key. Another reason why it's so important is because it allows you to track your consumptive versus investment expenditure. Once you have properly detailed what cash is coming in and out of your business, you can then quite clearly see what are you spending money on. And is it things that are actually helping your business to grow, or is it things that are never really going to generate some sort of income? And then the answers become very obvious about where you can seek to prioritize your expenditure so that you can actually give your business a fighting chance. To me, things that represent investment expenditure are things like if you buy a generator to give your business backup power supply, because we all know even a few hours of electricity downtime can actually be very crippling for any entrepreneur or any business. Lastly, I think the reason why it's so important to get this right is because it avoids a situation where your back is up against the wall and you have to go and accept support and help or funding from people that might charge you punitive rates, or that might then actually want to rather take a stake in your business, forcing you to dilute your own shareholding and your own value in the business, simply because you've been forced to come to that compromise as a result of where you find yourself. So then, if we then shift to what you can do about it, how do you manage cash flow then in a crisis situation? Well, here's some tips and action items that you can take. Number one, seek to collect faster on whatever invoices you are owed, because cash sitting with clients that owe you money represents cash that is not in your pocket. So very important that if people owe you money, seek to collect on that as quickly as you can, because that can make the difference between your cash position being healthy or not. And I think COVID has taught us how easily clients that we thought could pay us, and therefore we were quite relaxed about how we collect our cash from them, can often find themselves, due to matters out of their control, suddenly not being able to repay. And so for every rand that is sitting with customers that owe you money, that's a rand that is impacting your cash position. Number two, inventory management. So when I think of inventory management, there's a few things that one can do. For instance, if you sell sneakers and that is your business, if you've got a bunch of sneakers sitting in a factory that just aren't moving, Perhaps there are merits in considering whether or not you might actually return some of those to the original supplier, even if it means accepting a slight discount in order to essentially turn those tackies into cash. Or you could then seek to try and even provide some sort of discounts to try and move those sneakers into buyers' hands as soon as possible. Next up, I think in terms of possible avenues and solutions that you could take, think about this new buzzword called pivoting. So when I think of pivoting, it essentially means an ability for a business to shift gears and change direction in order to go and follow the opportunities, follow the demand. It's taking your existing resources, your existing cash, equipment, people, etc., and rather than trying to continue a business line, which you can see is not really gaining much traction at the moment, if possible, shift that to a different direction where there is indeed opportunity right now. I'll give you a very good example of pivoting. A lot of us know Nintendo as a company which makes games and which makes gaming devices like the Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo Switch. But what we don't know is that Nintendo did not start off as a gaming company. For many, many years, they used to make vacuum cleaners, instant rice, even owned a taxi company. And it's only in the 1960s that they picked up an opportunity in gaming and shifted and pivoted their current offering to then meet where they thought the demand would come. And today, Nintendo is a household name, whether because we're all gamers or because we have children that force us to buy these games for them. At the very least, I think we all know the Mario Brothers game. Next is a need for you to review your supplier arrangements. So if you have suppliers that, for instance, have insisted on being paid in 30 days, do explore whether or not there might be an opportunity for you to renegotiate those payment terms with your suppliers and see if you can rather pay them in 60 days. You'll be surprised how much 30 days can give you in terms of breathing room and in terms of the leeway to go and collect on the invoices as I've described, or to pivot, or to do the right inventory management to boost your cash position, such that you find yourself then in a position where very healthily you're able to resume the supplier payments in a way that does not cripple your cash flow today. Another way that one can seek to address cash flow shortfalls right now is reviewing your fixed costs. Again, if there's something that COVID has taught us, it's that there's a lot of business expenses that we all thought we couldn't live without, and yet here we are today using up far less office real estate, doing far less business travel, and yet the show has gone on. And so in that respect, I think we must never forget that there is an opportunity in every crisis to review our fixed costs. Another thing that I would encourage all entrepreneurs to explore is conversations with their bank, with the tax man, as well as with any shareholders who are expecting cash at this time. I think it's more important to rather have you call your bank and rather then seek to initiate a conversation about whether or not you could qualify for a payment break on any of your debt, again, to give you the breathing room you need to help survive, but also pivot your business to where it needs to go to generate cash again. Or if your business is picking up the phone to SARS to then make an arrangement around potentially deferring payments. It's very important that you own that conversation and you do it proactively before you fall into arrears or have return debit orders or have yourself late on payments or having excesses, because that kind of stuff does impact the view of a business being in good standing and can impact your ability to raise funding in the future. Don't forget that there are probably assets in your business that you could probably sell or dispose of right now and turn those into cash. Whether it's a laptop or a speaker or a piece of machinery, don't be afraid to review what you can live without, sell those, turn them into cash. Don't forget that there's also the ability to do a sale and lease back. That means selling, for instance, a piece of equipment to a third party, and then you lease it back. It allows you to continue to enjoy the benefits of using that machinery without you owning it. As I seek to wrap up, the last two things I want to touch on is the ability for you to delay making any new purchases of things like machinery if your business can actually do without it for now. I think you must consider that. I think it's also important that this is not the time for vanity projects of brand new machinery or things like that. This is in fact the time to consider if it's possible to rather buy secondhand, and no shame in renting something if it's absolutely necessary. Lastly, please don't forget to pay attention to what available lines of credit or funding you currently have. Although if you are going to take advantage of the current low interest rate environment to take out things like additional debt or draw upon your existing available lines of credit, please take care to do so to fund investment expenditure, not consumptive expenditure. And second of all, do so responsibly in a way that you know you will be able to repay it. That's it from me, folks, in terms of that segment of the engagement. I so look forward to engaging with you in the Q&A and taking any questions that you might have today. Thank you, and I wish you all the very best.
This summit is brought to you by I Am an Entrepreneur in association with FNB and our partners.
Thank you very much, Andiswa, for that. That was absolutely brilliant, especially your last slide with the specifics that we should all be thinking about. It seems as if the general message, Andiswa, from you is caution. It seems as if the general message is try and get as much cash in as possible, try and minimize the cash that's going out. So if you wanted to do something extravagant, now is not the time. I want to piggyback on one point that you did raise earlier on that's also come through the chats here. And that's the importance of splitting your personal cash flow with your business cash flow. Now, entrepreneurs struggle with this thing. They're like, why? Isn't it the same thing? I'm the same person. You put me together when it suits you. You separate me when it doesn't. Why is this so important for a bank?
Firstly, I think it's important for the entrepreneur more so than the bank, to be honest, because, and being married to an entrepreneur, as I said, I have a very keen understanding of how that business and personal finances can intersect very quickly. So the reason why I think it's important for you to protect your personal wealth or personal finances is because the last thing you want is that, heaven forbid, your business does run into trouble and you do then have some sort of judgment against your business from a credit perspective. And then because you have tied your personal and business finances so closely, there is an ability for those who you owe money to go after your own house. And now you can't even house your family anymore. And it has real implications for your family and the assets that you have hopefully built for as a legacy for your children, as an example. So I think it's crucial for the entrepreneurs to create a clear delineation between personal and business finances, and that they know that even when the business does need some cash from personal, it's done in an arm's length way that is properly documented and that you have, thought it out properly. The reason why it's important for the bank is because never forget also that you are seen as a whole individual, if I can call it that. Right. So your banking profile and your personal profile, especially if you're a sole owner of a business, do tend to intersect. And so the one caution I want to also then make to entrepreneurs is that don't ever underestimate your conduct on your personal accounts and how that can in time have an impact on whether your business can raise funding, because you are seen very much as a linked entity, so to speak.
So I must keep them separate, but I must behave in both.
Please, that's the key message.
All right, there's a couple of questions coming up, but we've got a special guest that's going to join us now, Zara. He's got a question for you. He's going to join us on stage. Hello, Zara.
Hi, how are you?
Good, go for it.
So my question is based on the fact that I run a photography business, right? A photography company. So business, especially right now, is very seasonal. It's few and far between. So how is it possible if at all, to forecast my cash flows, being the case that, it's either you have a cash flow or you don't.
All right, Andy, so I'm so glad you have to answer these questions and not me. Thank you, Zara.
And actually, Zara, thank you very much for that question. Wonderful to see your face, and thanks for raising a question. I'd like to actually draw you right back to the fundamentals of the cash flow management slide, which I think was the very first slide that I discussed, because that actually is the best place from a theoretical perspective to say, here is the checklist. This is everything that I could be looking at to build a forecasted view, whether it's additional contracts, whether it is an ability to take out some lines of credit, or whether it's new opportunities. Actually, everything I think you need might be contained in that fundamental slide. I'd love for you to take a look, and I'm available to you offline if you want a more one-on-one approach where we can discuss it.
Thank you.
Great stuff. So what I'll do is we'll share your email address with Zara so that she can make contact if she needs to. Linked to Zara's question is a question we got on Instagram, Andiswa. It came from Blonza, and Blonza 007 says, I also have a question for your panel. For business people, are there online tools that we can use that will give us an outline of our cash flow projections for a period of 12 months? We use Sage Accounting, and I'd like to know about other tools. Secondly, we have a contract that pays us after 60 days, which is essentially 90 days, I guess, because the other 30 they're doing the work. The balancing act is quite difficult. How can we continue servicing this contract without putting a strain on our cash flow? So 2 questions.
Sure. And to the first question, I will do a little bit of a self-plug at that point by saying there is actually a wealth of information, some of which you can even find on the FNB app. So if you go onto our website or onto the app and you click in particular on the icon that says COVID-19, within that you will find the Business Hub. The Business Hub has then a few features contained there. Number one is a program called Fundaba, which I think has discussed many times, even in the IAAE platforms in the past. But nonetheless, it's basically having a business coach almost in your back pocket and gives you tips on how you can start, run, and then grow your business. And then, in particular, in response to COVID, we launched what we call the Business Talk. Business Talk is an opportunity to draw from business leaders and other industry insights so that we put as much of the insights and knowledge we have into your pocket as well. And then lastly, there's something called business within the business, business toolkit. Sorry, the word escaped me. So the business toolkit is then COVID specific. And the business toolkit walks you through how to crisis manage through something like the situation we currently have. So I hope that answered the first question. There is a wealth of information, and if anything, you're welcome to even tap into the FNB app.
Great stuff. All right, let's leave it there, Andy. So thank you so much for everything. Thanks for a great presentation. Thanks for great energy, and thanks for answering our questions.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of the day, everybody. Awesome to be with you.
Thank you so much. And good luck to that entrepreneur husband there at home. It's good to have an entrepreneur husband and a banker wife. That's a nice little balance there. I do see that there's a couple of other questions that have been asked. TD, I'm going to answer your one. You were asking what financial instruments besides money market accounts mentioned here are available. Do you recommend to make surplus cash grow? Yes, exactly as Pavlo said a little bit earlier on, never let money sleep. That was his tip that I wrote down on my piece of paper. Money market tends to be safer. It tends to be easier to access when you need the cash. So a money market account or a call account with the bank, go and try and negotiate for as high an interest rate as you possibly can because it's safe and it's easy to get in and out. Other forms of investments typically have some cost of getting into them. So whether that's property or shares or bonds, there are costs that are involved in getting into them. Money markets is pretty much your banking costs, which are minimal in comparatively. And also the other products, of course, carry risk, right? So today you could buy the MTN share price is doing well. Tomorrow it could not do so well. So you may not want to exit the MTN share price at that point because you wanted to kind of recover before you exited. So that's going to restrict your ability to take the money in and out of the bank. So that's my advice on that one. That's how I typically do it. So I keep the cash I know I'm going to need for my business in a call account. That way I get more interest than the current account. I always have less cash in the current account because you get nothing from a current account. But my savings, I put it into assets that are much more long-term, That'll give me, obviously bigger returns. But of course, the downside of bigger returns is also bigger risks. So hopefully that answers your questions. All right, guys, don't forget, we still have those 3 books to give away a little bit later on. So make sure you stay with us, and so that when we get there, you are one of the winners of that wonderful book. Thanks again to Andiswa. Next up, I'm going to bring my guest, my very special guest for this morning, and that's our entrepreneur, our guest entrepreneur, and it is none other than Lynette Magasa. She is the chief executive and founder of Boniswa. What Boniswa does essentially is in the telco industry, they build all the infrastructure that all of these big, fat telco companies, the Vodacoms, the MTNs, and other private clients, by the way, use. And this wonderful lady is the lady behind all of that. I got to meet Lynette Magasa a couple of years ago, bumped into each other in business, and we've become good friends since then. And I thought, who better to bring than an entrepreneur in the telco industry, thriving in lockdown, by the way, these telco people. We all envy them, don't we? And of course, it's Women's Month. Let's get into the real issues of building a business literally from scratch. Hello, Lynette Magasa.
Thank you, Andile. Good day, Andile. Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Lynette Magasa, founder for Boniswa Corporate Solutions. The company was formed in 2004. I started with only 5 guys, and today we've got about 200 employees permanent. And then our head office is in Midrand, and we are all over nationally. You're quite right, Andile. This time during the COVID, we are extremely busy. Actually, I was hoping that, after lockdown, we can start looking into taking leave. So what we do in Boniswa is that we make sure that one of our biggest vision, and funny enough, this vision, we revised it last year, where we bridge the digital divide between the rural and the urban areas. So that came in time, especially now during the COVID, where you have to do online, a lot of streaming online meetings and everything else. So we are there, we make sure that we support the operators. We support your MTN, we support Vodacom, we support Telkom in making sure that we have connectivity in all the areas that one has to connect. But what Pablo said, what Pablo mentioned before, we just didn't start working direct for the operators. We also started working as a subcontractor for your Nokia, Siemens, your Places. Those are the guys that supply the equipment that goes into your Vodacom and your MTN or your telco side. We also work for Huawei, which is a Chinese manufacturing as well. So we started small, and then it was after that we then started engaging the end user, which is the operator themselves. So what we do is we build towers from scratch. We go to areas where there's no network. Sometimes the operators will tell us to build the towers as a CapEx model, where we build, and the tower, the infrastructure belongs to the operator. And we also have an OpEx model where we build, and then the infrastructure belongs to us, and then they also then come and rent space from our infrastructure. So in the telco industry, we don't just only support the cellular, we also support your Centec, which also anyone that needs an infrastructure, which becomes very crucial nowadays. That's what we support. We are there for that. We've also gone into voice over IP, where you make use of data. What is very key right now, it's data usage, where people want to be able to have access on internet at home. And at some stage when you disappeared on the screen, I was just thinking, oh, Andile needs a lamppost right there. I need to go and pitch in for 5G right there. So that's basically what we do. But as a person, I've grown. I've been hands-on myself. I got involved with the business even before I could take any business. I evaluate the business and make sure that is it something that we can do? Is it something that we can be able to finish and produce quality on time? And I think there was one a lady by the name of Maya that asked the question to Pablo to say that sometimes, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to go and look for business. But there's also a thin line that you might look for business and then the foundation would collapse. So what I have done myself, I've actually invested in making sure that I strike a balance. I then paid in a mentorship program where I sit with a mentor. And then the mentor helped me. Mentors, they normally help you on how to find the balance, because some of us, we come from the rural areas and all of a sudden you have to be an entrepreneur. At the same time, you have to be a mother. At the same time, you have to go through challenges, certain challenges as well. So what has helped me was to pay a mentor. And as Andy so was talking about, you know, having to make sure that you have your finances in place.
Yeah.
I was just laughing to myself, Andy, because, you know, I'm not a trust fund baby, but what my grandmother told me was that when someone gives you money, you must take the loan and you must be able to pay that loan back. And in that way, you create yourself to become a trust fund baby, because whenever you need the loan, once you've paid the loan back, then it's easier for you to get
But how
to
have
go
you?
back to that.
Yeah, but how have you managed that cash flow issue? I'm sorry to jump in there because it's an important lesson for us to learn from somebody as experienced as you are. I mean, you don't come from a big finance background. I mean, you were a receptionist when you started from scratch. So you learned everything you know, you taught yourself as you went, and you picked up courses along the way, you got the mentors. But right now, you know, how are you making sure that you try and keep that balance when it comes to managing cash flow? Because I can imagine a big part of your business can be demanding on the cash flow. I mean, you got to build all this equipment and all these sites before your customers pay you. Or if you manage the relationship with your customers such that you can get paid earlier, as Pablo was talking about, you know, collect early, pay late. I mean, what are some of the tricks you can share with us in your business?
So what we normally do is with the client, we also have what we call invoice discounting. So when invoice discounting is when sometimes when you are trapped with cash, you will then ask them to settle that invoice earlier, and they will charge a small fee, maybe sometimes 2.5%. And then we also, what we've done is we've gone to the suppliers, to our suppliers, instead of, because of the relationship that we've built with the suppliers, we then ask for 60 days, 60 payment days, and also to 90 payment days. But then our clients, some clients, they pay us within 30 days, and others, yes, because of the size of the company, then we have to get paid in 65 days. But then your invoice discounting becomes your one of the easiest way where you can get cash. Then the second thing is what I've done is myself, we've got funding from National Empowerment Fund, and we've also got funding from CIFA. I've always been honest enough, and I open, before we get the funding, I ask as much questions as I could. And I would ask them, how much are we supposed to pay? And then I sit and calculate to say, oh, by the time we finish paying you, would have even paid you more than 100% of the loan. Then, and in that way, in a simplest form, it then helps me to shy away from your venture capital, from all this quick capital that you can get. But at the end of the day, when you finish, you find that you've paid double. So then you are able to sit with your supplier and say to them, look, can I do this work, and then maybe 50% payment terms before, and then after that you will invoice at the end. That's what we always do.
I mean, you're clearly very charming. You look like $1 million right now. I'm sure that helps in your convincing of your clients. But how do you convince the client to change their payment terms? Or do they have these programs? Or are you just lucky? I mean, when you look back, you know, what would you say are the things you can share with us as entrepreneurs as a way of getting your clients to pay you early?
With us, what we have done is we have produced quality. And when you are given a project, what we always do is we try and finish the project before time. And secondly, we make sure that we have quality. By producing quality,